This video contains gratuitous use of profanity and uncomfortable pauses to compensate for lack of professionalism and original thought. Viewer discretion advised.
To you live from 1428M, we proudly bring to you the Nerdy Manroom show with your hosts, Hassel and Monster. And Monster, we got one hell of a show this week.
We do. We have a very special guest interview with Anders Erikson from Nightmare Gloves, and he also created a glove for Trick or Treat Studios as well. But before we get to the interview, let's take a moment and thank our sponsors, These Own Collectibles. You can find them on the internet at thezonecollectibles@gmail.com and on Facebook at The Zone Collectibles or in their store at 305 Main Street, Tifton, Georgia. Visit them for all your nerdy needs, from comics to Legos, trading cards, games, toys, horror movies, and collectibles, and more. Help them support the local artist community by supporting their cause of bringing unity through community. Fandoms unite. And with that, we're going to take you straight into our interview because we had a very fun interview with Mr. Erikson, and we want to take you straight to that. Then we'll come back here and we'll do some nerd out.
Welcome everybody to this week's edition of the Nerdy Manroom show. There we go. We have premier Freddy Glove builder himself, Mr. Anders Erikson. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
We are well. We are well.
You speak for yourself, sir.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah. Surgery. So sorry about that.
Hard life.
Tell everybody a little bit about yourself. Where you come from and everything like that, if you will.
Yeah, sure. I'm from Denmark, so lived there for like half my year. Then I moved to the States when I met my wife. Well, she wasn't my wife yet, but I met her, and then we got married in Denmark, and then moved to the States, and pretty much been here ever since. I got into glove making, glove building, I guess like 30 years ago. And I was still living in Denmark and all that stuff. And started talking to the Robert Englund and his wife before there was Facebook. And it was before Freddy vs. Jason came out. So it was kind of like a little bit of a quiet time for Robert, like Freddy wise. Then after Freddy vs. Jason hit, then it got like blown out to like a more mainstream, I guess. It was big before, but he got a sort of renewal or renaissance, whatever you want to call it. And so that's when it really started, because they really liked my work. And little guy in Denmark doesn't know shit. So Robert Englund comes and says like, "Hey, you do great work," He was the one who told me to sign my gloves inside because they're works of art, he said. So that's all the encouragement I needed to continue. So and then
how did you draw the attention of Robert, if you don't mind me asking? Like, what was it that got him?
Actually, there was a little group, and the funny thing is that it was called the England List. It was an email group, and Nancy was part of it, Robert's wife. And my wife was actually on that list way before we even met in person. And so it was just fans talking, and I don't even know how many members there were, but I seem to recall there was like 20 active members or something like that. Not a whole lot. So we just talked about stuff. I made stuff. I built the gloves, and then Nancy's like, "Oh, they're really cool." And then Robert had a show in Sweden. I forgot what town, what city. And they immediately recognized me and said, "Oh, it's our friend from building the gloves from the England List." And it was just kind of mind blowing back then. It's like, oh wow. And they're really cool people. And they've just been basically been a part of my life ever since, because they're just, I mean, they started calling me their bastard child, you know.
That's what's up right there.
Yeah, and it was just like, so I got to visit them where they live in Laguna Beach, and you know, it's like very cool, and they're just like really, I mean, Robert, he cares about his fans, you know, and then for some odd reason they sort of took me under the wing, and then they just really nice people, and I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today if it wasn't for them. I wouldn't have met my wife if it wasn't for Freddie, Robert England, and his wife, and their dog Lola back then, because Nancy, she had made a what was it called? MySpace page for her dog Lola, and that's after the England list. That's where my wife found me on MySpace, because we both liked Robert England's dog's page. And then it's like, hey, I remember that guy from that list. And I was like, hey, you're that, you know, yeah. So we reconnected there, and then like, we should meet up. And I had a show coming up in Texas. So she flew to Texas, and we met there for the first time. And then we had all these creative ideas that we wanted to do. Like, I had an idea for a script, and she was writer. So we started working on that. And then, but even though we never actually, you know, we got a script together, but we never did anything with the movie. But we got married instead. So, you know.
Hey, it worked out pretty damn well then.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not complaining. So yeah, it's that's kind of like my life in a very short little section there. And
that's right. Not a lot of people can say that Freddy Krueger and his dog, you know, was responsible for meeting their soulmate.
Yeah, right. That's true. But yeah, that is the story.
That's awesome. Well, they say heavy is the head that wears the crown. So how big of an honor is it to you as being the world's premier Freddy glove builder?
I don't really think about it. I really don't, to be honest. I think that I'm just you know, I'm just lucky, and I'm, you know, doing what I do because I do still love Freddy, you know. And I'm just fortunate that, you know, Robert has taken to my way of building gloves, because there are other glove builders out there.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a bunch of guys, and they meticulously paint all the details and all that stuff with, you know, whatever paints they use. And I'd never been one to use that approach. I always thought, when you get the glove, I don't want you to think it's a reproduction of a prop.
Yeah.
I always thought, if you hold the glove, it should feel like Freddy is real, you know, and this is his weapon.
Yeah.
And that's always been my approach. So I know that the some of the props for the movies were made with like thinner materials, because they were only meant to last for a couple of moments on screen, you know, and then they can fall apart or whatever. Who cares, because they got the scene. So I don't ever say like screen accurate or anything like that, because by now I have all the templates for the different gloves that were used in the movies, because they just sort of trickle in one way or another, or I handle a glove from a movie. So of course it lift the templates off when I have them, you know, just for kicks. So, but yeah, that's always been my approach. And I think that Robert, he appreciates that too. And I think that's one of the reasons, is that I aim more to be museum quality, you know, where if you go to a medieval exhibition or something, you know, there are reproductions of torture instruments, for instance, and they got to look like they're actually from the period of time, you know, even though they're just a couple of months old maybe. And that's sort of my approach to it, is that I wanted to look real. I wanted to feel real. So you don't feel like here's some dude who set and did these things because he's matching it to a movie prop. So,
yeah, because I mean, God forbid, I mean, the original, they were snapping blades on set. So if someone buys one and that happens, they're going to be some type of.
Yeah, I mean, and it's been sold, and it's like it's a movie piece, just like anything. It's got the movie history, and that's the value of it. So of course, but then there's that's then you buy the prop. If you want the movie history, then you get that. If you want to get something that makes you feel like, okay, fuck, I got Freddy's claw, then that's what I make. So that's my approach. That's what I do. So and then there's other people who have different tastes, and then there's lots of other people who do what they want. Like, okay, I want the cheap ass tomato. Well, they're not cheap anymore because the builders, they buy these fucking tomato knives for $100 now, and they were originally sold for like what, $10?
Yeah,
that back then. And yeah, they're tomato knives, so they will break if you try to stab stuff, and that's how that is. But collectors are funny.
We're fickle people.
Yes, I collect myself. I know. So I actually had one. I think that one of the world's biggest Freddy collections.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. I have photos of my collection. That's enough to fill a very large living room. So yeah, so it took me years, and I was living in Denmark. So half of that money went to just shipping from the States to Denmark. Because back then there wasn't as many people collecting.
No.
And so I just got it because I had an interest, and then I got a lot of interesting things directly from Robert and Nancy as well. And most of those I've managed to hang on to, but now I don't have. I mean, my mom died, and I kept most of my stuff in Denmark, so it's not feasible. And there was a whole bunch of stuff.
It's crazy to think the things that Freddy got licensed as back in the 80s.
What's that?
I said it's kind of crazy when you look back and think of the things that Freddy did get licensed on back in the 80s. That that type of shit wouldn't fly today.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Like the spitballs. They were weird. Yeah, they got little spitballs with Freddy Krueger faces on them, and there's like I don't know, man. There's everything. Lollipops, like
candy, trading cards.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. And
talking dolls.
Talking dolls. Man, if you can think of it, he was there. Like the weird windshield screen that with reflective backing, and then a Freddy on the other side, and I don't know, it's like I had one of those, didn't have a car. It was like, what the fuck is this even for? Yeah. Like there's so much weird shit out there. But I mean, and there's of course all the Chinese knockoffs and the Mexican knockoffs. I had a bunch of those. It was just fun. Oh, I have a little lighter that has Freddy on it, and if you light it, it starts laughing. But of course, it's not. Again, it's got to be like a knockoff, because it's like that typical. You know that you remember Joker when he dies in Batman? Mm. Tim Burton's, yeah, and he's got that little laughing bat. Yeah. That's exactly what it sounds like. Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
Just out of curiosity, because me and my cousin, we got in a shit ton of trouble for dialing up the Freddy hotline. Did you guys have that in Denmark?
Oh, I only saw the ads. I was living in Denmark. There's no way I was going to call an 800 number. I
didn't know if maybe they had their own version of it or what, but I know we got a shit ton of trouble.
Freddy, he was never as popular. He didn't really start to become popular in Denmark until Nightmare 3. And I think that was the first movie to be shown in theaters in Denmark.
Wow.
Yeah, because before then it wasn't big enough. Mm-hmm. So they wanted to see how big of a draw these movies are before they invest in it. Back in the old days when it wasn't just a digital file, Mm-hmm. So Nightmare 3 was the first one to be shown in Denmark, as far as I know. And then they got pretty big I know in Germany he was bigger, because I would get German magazines with Freddy on them, you know, and then in the UK it was pretty big because, again, I got some guy who got me posters and stills and all that stuff, and he was this funny little British guy who was always like, only wanted to sell me like a couple of things at a time. And he was always like, let's walk before we can run, you know. And I'm like, I've been buying shit for you for like months and years, if not years.
I'm ready to run.
How far do we need to walk? Like, it's it's cost me shipping every time, man. So yeah, but yeah,
what was it about Freddy that kind of drew young Anders in?
What's that?
So what is it about Freddy that just kind of drew you in as a youngster?
Oh, that's a good question. I think the Nightmare 3 was because that was the first one that hit, and then I heard people talk about it, and people knew nothing of Freddy. So I heard some kids talk about like, oh yeah, there's this old guy, you know, and he made a what do you call those things? Puppets on a string.
A marionette.
A marionette, yeah. Turned this kid into a marionette, and I was like, well, that sounds interesting. You gotta watch that, you know. And so that's one thing, and I had to go to the video rental store to see those, and I think it was just before Nightmare 4 came out, and I saw the hype for Nightmare 4. Then I got sucked in by the look, you know, just the visuals of what I saw. So we watched Nightmare 4, and then I was being a jerk, and I bought Nightmare 1 for my brother for Christmas because I wanted to see it.
That's winning right there.
Yeah, exactly. And then when it arrived, of course, I popped it in the VCR, and the first fucking scene is Freddy building the glove.
Mm.
So that's that little thing right there. So I started, I didn't start anything until it was actually in my brother's hands, or it could have been his birthday actually, because he's got birthday in October, and once we watched it, and I probably liked it better than he did, but then soon after I started bugging. I was like, "Hey, Dad, do you want to build this?" And he said no. So I was like, all right, well, I guess I have to. So I started taking apart my curtain rods in my bedroom and getting vegetable knives out of my parents' knife drawer and started fidgeting around and building the first glove. And then my dad said, well, you're going to build this anyway. I better help you. So he did. And that was the first one there. So and then after that, I built another one and another one and another one, because then other people wanted one. And then I just built it for friends to begin with. And then soon after, that's where I started posting pictures on the England list, and Robert and Nancy saw what I was doing. But yeah, the images from Nightmare 3 and 4, and then him building it in Nightmare 1, that's what got me.
How many gloves deep were you finally like, holy shit, these are good? Like, because most people are either their own worst critic, or they think their shit's way better than it is.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So at which point was you like, you know what, I got something here?
I think probably when I got the recognition of Robert and Nancy. Looking back, it's like, I could. It's like my gloves now and my gloves back then. It's like night and day. Mm-hmm. But that's when I thought, wow, they like it. So that I gotta. That's probably when I had my website built shortly after, I think. So,
so you got Nightmare Gloves, but then you also got hooked into Trick or Treat Studios. How did the Trick or Treat Studios deal come about?
they got the license, and they I already knew Justin Mabry from a while back, and Ben from Fried Rags. You know, we all sort of know each other from the old days and convention scene and all that stuff. And so I think that he just thought of me immediately when they got the license to do these gloves. And so he reached out to me, and I said, yeah, absolutely. Happy to do it. Because we all had these plastic gloves when we were kids.
Yeah.
You know, these really horrible.
They were awful.
They were absolutely awful, yeah. But, you know, in the end, like when you grow up, you fucking love them. But the fact, one thing that's really cool is that now we get to make these gloves that are way better for a new generation, or for the old generation that had the shitty plastic ones, you know? So we can provide something better, and not to rag on anybody publicly, but there have been other mass-produced gloves, and they're fucking horrible. So I think that Trick or Treat actually did a pretty good job with, you know, coming up with a product that's mass-produced but still affordable and actually looks pretty good, you know, and works and doesn't fall apart.
Yeah, I mean, for the price, you can't really beat it. They're nice gloves.
I think so. Yeah, for $200, you know, that's, and yeah, so it's like, it's real metal. It's you know, leather, and I made the masters for them, and they diverted a little bit from it to make it easier to mass produce, I think, and to you know, fit a larger area, like amount of people, make it more one size fits all, you know. But for what it is, I think they're doing a good job, and they're a little heavy on the black paint. But if you just take like a rag with some, you know, paint thinner on it, it immediately makes them look so much better. And just,
what would you say probably sets the Trick or Treat Studios apart from your Nightmare Gloves versions?
I mean, you can't beat a hand-built product, I think. You know, It's kind of like even with latex masks and stuff. It's more assembly line, you know. It's like, you can tell, like, if you buy a latex mask in a store, you can tell, like, okay, maybe the spray paint on the veins aren't like right on spot, right?
Yeah.
They're in the vicinity. And it's kind of like this too. It's like, I think they do a good job. But it's not built specifically for your hand, you know?
Yeah.
Just like any bespoke product, it's like, if you buy anything, it's like, oh, maybe this doesn't fit right, or, you know, it's maybe your finger's a little too short for the Trick or Treat or something. And then you can come to me and I'll say, all right, well, you need a size medium or smaller or whatever, you know? Or just, you know, it's gonna, the soldering and stuff like that is like, you know, I mean, I've built gloves that are still working today, like 20, 30 years old, you know.
Wow.
And I don't think that the Trick or Treat Studios gloves will last that long. If you wear them every time for Halloween, then probably a ring will fall off or something like that, or a rivet will pop or something. But, you know, it's stuff that can be fixed, of course. But, you know, that's just one of those things. If you want something that really, you can beat something, you know, then hand built. And that's just like anything that's hand built versus something that's mass produced, I think. Probably.
And I've actually got to hold one of your gloves. My cousin, he has two, I believe. Oh, yeah. And it's a thing of beauty, because I only have the NECA Part 3 that I bought years ago at like a Spirits, you know. And it is what it is, you know. It was not a lot upgrade of what I had. Then I was proud of it.
Yeah.
And then like 2 weeks later, he's like, "Hey, dude, come over to the house to check what I got." And he told me he got it, and I was like, "You asshole!" Then, because you put it on, and it's just like, oh my God, it's
Mhm.
awesome. It's a feel like any other. I could say that.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm going for. Is that, and that's the only reason why we kept doing conventions for a while, because they're fun. I mean, right now both my wife and I we sell plenty from the home, so we don't really need to go to the shows to show anybody anything anymore. But one thing that is fun is that some people, when they never actually tried on a glove before, and then they put on the glove and they're like, oh,
Yeah.
and that's actually probably my favorite part about it, is like, whether they buy it or not, it's like, I'm glad I could do that for them, and then planted that seed, and now they're like,
Oh,
you know what, that thing was cool, and even if they don't buy it from me, they'll buy it from somebody else. But it's just something where people don't know until they try it, and I think that's fun.
yeah. Because when I put the neck on the first time, like I was like, oh, that's so cool. But then like the fingers stick. And then when I
Right.
put yours on, and like it was just like flowing. I was like, holy shit, I've got to upgrade at some point. This has got to happen. My fiance would probably murder me at this point. I would probably be one of the damned bastard sons at this point if I'd done that. But it's going to have to come at some point.
Yeah, it's and it's similar. My wife, she does these wear pups. I don't know if you've seen them.
Yeah, I have actually.
Yeah, and it's a similar thing with those. Is like, people have seen pictures, but then they hold them, and they're like, oh my god, this is creepy and lifelike,
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's those things where you can't show something past photos on the internet. You got to try it on, or you're gonna hold it, or whatever, before it really kicks in what you got there. And I like that aspect of things, where you just give people this sensation that he can't get from sitting at home and looking at their screen.
Mm-hmm.
It's that's a fun part, but it's at the same time, once COVID hit, we're kind of like, well, we just I was just became a dad, like, with Lars. He's 15 months old now, so we're like,
Congratulations.
yeah. So thank you. So we didn't have any desire to go back to conventions, especially after COVID and all that stuff. So we just like said, you know what, we don't need to do shows anymore, because not only is there's we got the baby, but flights, tables, hotel rooms, expenses, and all that stuff. It's just like, sure, you can make some money, but at the same time, it's a giant hassle, and we get more than enough orders to keep us busy. So there's not much of a point in really going, except for just fun. But then we should just go as fans,
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where you just sort of realize along the way, like, hey, why are we even doing this? So it's like, we're doing all right.
Without a doubt. So as somebody who has built all the gloves, which is your favorite to build, and is it the same as your favorite on-screen glove?
See, that's the thing, is that it always changes. Because I build, like, it's weird, because things come in waves for some reason, and I don't know why. I don't know what triggers these things, but I'll have like people just saying like, okay, I want a 9x1, and then they'll just keep like coming in with 9x1s, and then I'll be sick of it. I mean, I still love the glove in the movie, but I was just like, then I'll get sick of building it for a while, and I just like, okay, well, I know you placed an order here, but I'm gonna take this other guy's order, which is recently ordered, because I want to build that instead. And so, a lot of people hate me for that, but I gotta do that to keep saying, I'm like, build them in the order you got them. I was like, yeah, I'd like to in a perfect world, but I'm human, and I don't want to build something where I feel like it's
getting stagnant.
Yeah, exactly. So I like to switch it up.
Well, you probably also, if you're building the same one all the time and that's the only one you're doing, you probably won't after a while, if you're bored with it or if it's stagnant, you probably won't put the same amount of love into it, right? That you do.
Right.
And I'll be honest with you, if I was putting an order, I'd want whichever one you were going to build that you felt confident in. Hey, this is a great one. Nobody wants the half-assed one, right?
Yeah, exactly. And especially and I get that people wait a long time. I get that. But one thing that makes me not want to build something for you is if you tell me to hurry up or something like that. Then it's like, you know what? I'm just going to put that aside and build something for somebody else who I feel is more appreciative right now. If you want something fast, then there's lots of guys who will build something super fast for you, you know, and then you'll get what you pay for, you know, and just like with anything, you know. And I had one guy say, "Why can't you just bang out a glove real quick? You're the best." And I was like, "Yeah, there's a big difference between being the best and the fastest, you know.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, do you want something really good or do you want something really fast, you know?" And he did shut up after that. So, but you know, it's just like, and it's like I don't get mad. People don't know, you know, but it's just one of those things. That's yeah, I'm not a people person, I'll admit. So it's really, really easy to annoy me. So it's like, if you tell me to hurry up, if you tell me one of many things, then I'm gonna be real bored with you real fast. But you know, I do like building, and my favorite ones to build always changes, all depending on even who the customer is. Sometimes if you have a lot of enthusiasm and appreciation and willing to wait, and you just ask me to do my job and then sit back and let me do it, then I enjoy doing it. Whereas somebody else, like another thing is that if somebody says like, "Oh, I saw this other builder do this, that looks cool," you know, and then I was like, "Haha, no, you don't."
What a dick move. You don't tell Picasso how to do it or to hurry.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna put myself up there with Picasso, but it's just like everybody, you know. Nobody should go and say like, "Hey," you know. For instance, if Picasso, he's like, "Hey, do you know what Rembrandt did? That was really cool." Like, no, doesn't fly.
What would you say is probably your favorite on screen then? If I can understand the changing in the building,
Yeah.
so what would be your favorite on screen?
Well, I think actually it goes back between number 1 and 4, the most. Okay. Yeah, because number 1, it looks like this guy actually made it from parts of a boiler room, so that makes the most sense, you know. And then number 4 is just because now it's taking on a completely different personality, you know, and it's all, you know, grimy and spotted, and you know, like some said that they're supposed to simulate all the use it's been getting, which doesn't really make sense. He's already dead. He's in the dream world. He can do whatever he wants. But I just like the look of it. I think it's a very functional glove too.
Well, so that was, I always attributed part 3 to being he was more supernatural in this one.
Yeah.
So the glove always looked more crisp and fresh, but I never understood, or I never heard a reason why, I guess, where the extra soldering and all that comes from in the part 4 or 5 and beyond.
Yeah. That's actually Ricky Dean Logan, the guy who played Carlos in 6. I think that was him. Otherwise, it was Sean Greenblatt. Anyway, I always had a show with those two guys, and I think they both have one of my gloves now. And they said like, yeah, it's because it's supposed to have been broken down, overused, and all that stuff. So he started it back on, and you know, I don't know. It's an idea.
It's nice to know as a demon in hell he's still soldering gloves together.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he can grow long arms, but damn thing broke again. Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts on the reboot glove?
Oh my God, you're going there. I don't like it at all. I do not. I do not. Okay, we're on the same page. Good. All right. No. It's so horrible. It's so
Yeah.
horrible.
Okay, like
so
the clasp around the wrist and everything. It's like, what the?
Yeah, right. There's that. Plus, the way it's built, like I had one made by the guy who made one for the movie, right? Joe Mack. And I don't remember what. I think I just bought it or some guy gave it to me, whatever. You know, it was a certain number. It was numbered by the guy and all that. And I just remember that we got rid of it real fast. And one point, my wife, she got so mad at it. She crumbled it up into a ball and threw it across the room. And like it was it's so structurally unsound.
Yeah.
That it could never in a million years be used for anything deadly at all. It's like it's great for probably breaking your fingers if you try to stab somebody with it, but besides that, it's just like there's no structure on it that supports a stabbing motion, for instance, or a slicing motion. So it's just like it's these flimsy little strips, and they don't do anything. And no, it's a horrible, horrible, horrible design. So I can't say anything good about it. So I should probably just be quiet.
No, so, I understand because I remember when I first seen the visual of it, I was like, "What the fuck is this?" Like the little pieces in the front there, that's supposed to be. I assume it's supposed to be like the bone of the hand, kind of.
Yeah, I get the design,
man, this
but
is rough.
At first I thought, hey, it looks interesting, but then I also thought there's got to be more structure to it than just that. And but there wasn't. There wasn't. It's just like when kids they like in New Nightmare where Dylan he tapes knives to his fingers. That's just as useful as that, Except that now you also have a giant clasp with the edge on screw on top of it all. So
it's brutal. It is brutal.
I mean, it has its fans. So good for them.
I'm not. Yeah, there you go. That's the nicest thing you can say about it.
Yeah. It's like it has its fans. I'm just not one of them. Yeah.
So if somebody asked you to make one of those, you're kind of like, I don't know about that.
Yeah, I mean, I did make like maybe 5 of them or something like that, and then just like, nope, I can't do this. I can't. It was like, nah, I'm just gonna stick to what I like, and the people who go to buy my stuff is like they sometimes ask, and I'm like, no, don't do it.
So do you ever get any requests from anybody say, hey, just build the one you like the best or one you would like to build versus them picking one out?
Yeah, sometimes it happens. Yeah, it does actually, and I especially like when they like to just say, just build a cool glove, and don't even mention like movie, if they want something really unique or something. So I enjoy that actually a lot.
Yeah, so that's how I would be because I'm like, hey, you're the expert. You make what's coolest.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that. I was like, yeah, I do. I do design my own gloves as well. Because I just think there's a lot of ways to go with this, Mm-hmm. And I enjoy that. Just like anybody would probably like say, if you fix cars, for instance, you might create something on your own. Instead of just fixing Toyotas, Yeah. So it's like, okay, well, if you do this and put this together, it's going to look really cool, but or any other line of business.
Do you ever get like requests for like I don't know how familiar you are with like Freddy's Nightmares. You remember the pilot episode? He showed he had multiple gloves there. Do you ever get any requests for some of those gloves?
Every now and then. Really? Mostly I've had people say like, hey, you should do this. And then I say, sure, you can order one if you want. And I just want to see you make it.
We'll let you take the liberties and we'll just get the Instagram pictures.
It was an idea. But no, people are pretty specific. I've had some really fucking stupid ideas come in though. And I just say, no, that's stupid. I can't recall. There was one, and he even like, and I kept shooting down this idea because it was so dumb. It was like metallic pink or something like that, right? And it was like blades that could write or something like that. And it was like, what the fuck? You're gonna ask me to build a girly pen glove or something, you know? I was like, what? It's like, no, that's absolutely ridiculous. And this person like made 3 different accounts to ask me from different accounts.
Wow.
But it's like, I know it's you. Nobody else is
No one else would request it. It's gotta be
like,
you.
why? You know? I'm like, why ask me again when I already said no? It was like, it's not because of your personality. I don't know you. You know? But there's a lot of
thing
weird
it was
people.
missing was sparkles in the paint and the little click pins.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like maybe gotta shake it first and then like a paint Sharpie. I don't know. There's a lot of weird requests, and then sometimes sometimes there's something where it's potential.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, how about this? And I draw something for them. So like, okay, like this, and then something cool can come out of it. And then, but I have a feeling that most of the time, people, they only want to order what they already seen, and the same. My wife has the same thing with her. Most of her customers is that people, they don't have. I don't know. I don't want to say the imagination, but I think they don't know exactly how it's going to turn out if they ask for something, So we come up with our own designs every now and then people really can, like it a whole lot. And I've had people also copy my designs, and then they're like, well, it's just the one from the movie. I was like, no, it's not. It's my design. Yeah,
dick move.
Yeah, no, but people are dicks.
They are.
I mean, especially people without imagination, because they gotta replicate something that somebody else made. I do that, but it's for movies, and everybody else does that. But if you make something different than the movies, then it should be, then you're a dick for copying other builders' designs.
Well, I would say when Robert England can look at your work and say, "Hey, this is an Anders glove," you have your own unique spin on it at this point, to where your own signature, so to speak. So anybody trying to copy that's beyond just doing what the movie's doing.
Well, it's like the movie gloves. I feel like it's. I know that there's some builders where I've just sent them a glove before they started building, and then right after this, they start building that exact glove that I just sent them, right? So and there's nothing you can do about that, because it's the movie glove. So it's like, whatever they want to do with it, whatever. Sure, they probably list off the templates or whatever. But it's like, there's nothing you can do about that. But if I give somebody or show pictures of a glove that I've built, that's my own take on the Freddy glove, and then they start copying, that's when I was like, yeah, you're a dick. But I mean, there's still not a whole lot to do about it.
So I've seen where you make the new Nightmare gloves, which is something just not very common out here in the collector's market. How long does it take you to produce and build a new Nightmare edition?
Yeah, that is the most time-consuming glove for sure, because I think there's over 40 parts that need to be cast and then put together, sanded and painted and glued and riveted and all that stuff, So it's like, so I gotta cast the gloves, I gotta paint all that. Then every single bone piece needs to be sanded off and painted, drilled holes and all that stuff. So that is the most time-consuming glove, but I'm not sure how long. I tell people it's gonna be months, because you're just gonna cast everything, you gotta pour it, Gotta wait until it sets. Take it out of the molds, and all these different things. And
so it's kind of one you just have to keep coming back to along and along.
Yeah, because I fill the molds, then they got to set, so I go over and do something else somewhere else. Build another, work on somebody else's glove, and then I come back, and then the sanding creates this white dust that flies everywhere. So it's one of the things where I don't feel like doing it all the time because I got something else over here that I don't want white dust on. So it's one of those things where I like to set aside certain days and then just deal with all the damn bones on that glove, and then it's another one of those things where it's like I don't feel like dealing with it a lot. So even Lou, who made the first glove for the new Nightmare, I got all the molds from him.
Okay.
So they're the molds that were used for the movie.
Sweet.
Yeah, and basically, I think we did a trade back then because he won one of my gloves, which is a high compliment. We met in person in California, and he told me that out of all the gloves he's seen, mine was the most accurate to the movie, to the original movie glove. And so he won one of mine, and it's been so long for him. So it's like, we texted a bunch and stuff, and got some stuff from him. Then I got all the molds from him, the new Nightmare molds, and I still have those. And he said that he was never going to make another one because he was done with those gloves. So I was like,
I would have bet he was probably sick of them by the end of that movie.
I bet, yeah. So, but yeah, so I have still the original some glove bone pieces from the movie. That were like, I got this box, and he told me like, I have a box of mold and bones sitting in my garage, and it said Nightmare 7 on it, and so I got that whole box sent to me.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so that was pretty sweet.
That's definitely a grill piece right there.
Yeah, I mean that is. I mean, because I made molds of all the original bone pieces, so they're accurate, so I don't have to like wear down the original molds, because they're still like in their little cups, their Dixie cups that he had filled with silicone to make molds of them all. The Dixie cups are still all attached to the fucking molds, yeah. So it is a fun piece to have for sure.
Do you ever get requests for like the robotic hand from the very beginning of Nightmare?
I've had some,
before
actually, one of the first times somebody asked me to do that, I reached out to K&B because I found out that they were the ones who had the glove and that hand after the movie. And Howard Berger told me that no, that those parts all got repurposed for other things.
Really?
Yeah. So that robotic hand is no more. They use the parts.
Hell.
Yeah, I got used for parts. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's that. But I don't really do machined parts, so I never, like, now there's other people who do them in plastic, like, because of 3D printing and all that stuff, so that's what they do, and I keep building the traditional ones.
Gotcha. So when you got the call, how did you get, I guess, the call to build the glove for Robert for the Goldbergs?
Oh, there was a glove that he already had by me.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah. It's I'd built him that glove just around when Freddy vs. Jason came out.
So it was the Freddy vs. Jason version, correct?
Yeah, it's a sort of like a before Freddy vs. Jason hit theaters. I got some photos from Robert and Nancy while they were on set filming, and so I put together what the glove looked like to me from those photos, and sent one to him, and he kept that for his personal glove for a long time. So you're gonna see that on all sorts of TV shows and interviews and stuff. There was a what was it? There was a revolver, I think it was, a music award show.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, he wore that same glove to that show when he was announcing something with Kat Von D, I think, at the time. So yeah, it's been with him a lot of places. And then he used that same glove for Goldberg's, and I can tell that because of that glove, they spray painted some NECA gloves black to match it better for those scenes where he's up close with actors.
Okay.
Yeah, because the NECA gloves can't harm anybody. So yeah,
I know it's it's sad, but it's fine. But we can't tell you how much we appreciate it. You coming on today. It was a huge honor. It was awesome talking to you. We do something each week on the show called Nerd Out, where we ask each other a random question that we haven't had time to prepare for. Monster usually kicks my ass in this field. So we're going to ask you a Nerd Out this week and let you answer. So if you're cool with it, we'd like to ask you one. And my question to you is, in a world full of reboots are just common now, and they've done Butcher just one time. So how would you like to see the franchise move forward with a reboot, and who behind the glove?
Good question. I do actually have a friend who wrote a really good script. I'm not going to say anything about who it is or anything like that, but I can definitely see the reboot happening. You know what? One guy that I always thought looked in Freddy vs. Jason. Do you remember? What's his name? Zach Ward, I think, from Christmas Story. He was the bully. Yeah. He was in Freddy vs. Jason. At one point, he was acting because he
wanted to slit his wrist in the tub.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that he could actually make a great Freddy. And
that's interesting.
Yeah, because he's always played a bully, so he has that sort of. Well, he was known as a bully from when he was very young, so he has that sort of anti hero. More so, he's anti the hero, more so being a hero himself. But I can see him playing it with a really interesting twist. I know there's these things going around about Kevin Bacon, but I don't think it's going to take. And it's something that I think Robert would like to see. But I think there's a lot of other options out there. Yeah. So I think that, but if it's just done right, I'm all for a reboot. Because, but it needs to be done right. It needs to be done with respect for the old movies. It needs to have good design, needs to have good actors, needs to have good story, and a good director.
Well, if something's not broke, don't fix it. The design of the glove is perfect. The makeup is perfect. You don't have to redo these. It's just
right.
I almost feel like a unknown actor will probably benefit better from it.
Yeah,
scrutiny wise.
Yeah, that's true. I agree with that. If you can find an unknown guy who does a great job, then that's great, And like you said, the whole thing with the reboot is that the makeup, it was sculpted well. It's just that it wasn't Freddy at all,
No.
It's like he needs to have that nose. He needs to have a certain look. And I know that a nose on a burned victim doesn't make sense, but Freddy is not a burned victim. He's a dream demon who got burned to death. It's not. He didn't lie around in the hospital to recover.
Yeah.
So it's like no, he died, and I think that what we see is how he sees himself after what he became. When he burned to death to a crisp. So logic needs to be put aside, and don't think like, oh, what do burn people look like? Well, you
can overthink things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's just like, it's good old 80s where flesh will keep dripping forever,
yes.
And it's just like, that's what you that's what we want. That's what we need. That's over supernatural things, and it's like everything has to have a reason or whatever. Like, I'm treading on dangerous ground here, but I never liked the Christian Bale Batman because they brought it down to let's try to make sense of all this level.
Too practical.
Yeah, and I think that didn't work. And it didn't work for me. It worked for lots of other people, and that's cool for them. But I'm not that guy.
I don't need for things to make sense to me. I just need. I like action. I like John Wick movies. Could the shit ever happen? No.
Yeah.
However, I enjoy the hell out of the thrill ride, and Freddy and my horror movies are the same way.
Yeah. I think especially with horror movies, things shouldn't make sense because we fear the unknown, and if something doesn't make sense, it becomes more unnerving. I think so. I mean, it's like sometimes, sure, it's laughable, but also when you sometimes see those fucking medieval paintings, they're like, oh, that's fucking creepy as fuck. But it's also kind of laughable. What the fuck's going on here?
Yeah.
And like, I like my horror movies to be a little bit like that, where it's kind of like, what the fuck? And it's like, ew, And it's like, yeah, it's like, it can be a joke if you tell it, but if you show it the right way, it's creepy as hell. And I think that's the most effective way of doing horrors in a lot of ways. And I think that's why Freddy is so popular, because it's both comical and grotesque, Mm-hmm. And I think that works well together. Like pizza, faces on a meatball, on a pizza, stuff like that. It's like, yeah, if you're set, like what the fuck? Are you high? Like, yeah, it's a fucking dream. Dreams are fucking weird. They don't make sense at all,
And Ford did skate the line. It done a good job. I love and hate the movie at the same time because it did introduce the humor into Freddy a little more than what I care for, and that's seemed to open the door for some of the things in 5 and 6. But at the same time, it would like you'd let your guard down before they scare the hell out of you, which is what really was going for, I suppose. But it's a love-hate type thing, I guess.
It is, yeah. And I think it's because that Robert he saw it from a different point of view than we did. Mm-hmm. So he was toying around on the set on the first one. So he always had this feeling that, well, there was always humor because Freddy goes around and says "boo" behind her, and we didn't know, And so there's that part. And in Nightmare 2, they didn't know the rules yet, so they were creating their own thing and figuring out what was going on. And now that's like a cult praised by because it's different, Yeah. And the third one, I think that's really the one that opened because that's when he started saying things like
one-liners and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. So and then they said, "Wow, that was big." So of course they went with it for the next one, the fourth one, and then they kind of missed the mark with the fifth one. I think also because they left the original formula behind a little bit, and I think
because there were some cool aspects to it, but then it's just like,
oh yeah. But the thing is that I find a lot of appreciation for the fifth one now, but when it came out then, it wasn't for the target audience because we didn't have kids yet. Like, this is.
I will say above and beyond, the coolest kill on that is the motorcycle. That was pretty neat at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you see the uncut version, and then it's
before we turn you loose.
Mm-hmm.
What is your favorite version of Freddy? What is it? What do you? Is there a particular version of Freddy or his makeup that you that's your Freddy?
Again, I gotta go between 2 and 4 because I really like what, and the thing is, like, I really like what David Miller did in some things, but I think that the David Miller one, he's really good at being seen more in shadows and a little bit from afar. And then if he's really up close in your face, then it's Nightmare 2. He's probably the scariest, I think. I also really like the glove, how it looks in Nightmare 2. But then there's also Nightmare 4 Freddy, where he is the anti-hero. Yeah. We root probably just as much for Freddy as we do for everybody else, and we want to see him kill all the teenagers.
Yeah, he was definitely a pop culture icon by this point.
He was, exactly. So it's two very different Freddys. One is probably, I didn't care for the flesh hand with the blades coming out of it. Mm-hmm. But I like the glove as it was carried over from Nightmare 1. I thought by the Nightmare 2 it looked great, because it had all the wear and tear on it. Rivets had been replaced, and then it just looked more interesting in Nightmare 2. And I had a big Nightmare 2 poster in my room when I was a kid. So that's a look that I really, really like. And then Nightmare 4, he's so gross looking, Mm-hmm. He looks more raw, all the skin, and he's that's the cool Freddy. Nightmare 2 is scary Freddy. Nightmare 4 is cool Freddy. So I go back and maybe my favorite would be right in the middle between those two. If they could do something, if they do a reboot, do something that's cool and scary.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you on that, because I'm a big. I love what Jaeger done with Part 2. Mm-hmm. I actually have a huge piece on my calf that's Freddy from Part 2. Nice. The glove, yep. That's he was his most sinister looking in Part 2 to me.
Absolutely.
If I was scared he was coming at me in my dreams, that would be the version I seen. But by 4, like you said, he's got that reborn anti-hero where you're rooting for him to fuck these little kids up by this point.
Yeah, exactly. You want to be friends with Nightmare 4 Freddy, and you're afraid of Nightmare 2 Freddy, Yeah,
I'll have a beer with Part 4 Freddy. I'm running still. As a big fat guy, I'm running for Part 2 Freddy.
Yeah. He looks menacing and frightening in Nightmare 2. And it's just a great look for him, I think. But it's I think maybe Nightmare 4 is a little bit the nostalgia part, because there are certain things where it hits you when you're a certain age and you see certain things, then it's going to stick with you for life. Mm. And then you just like it, whether it's stupid or not, Mm. And I think that Nightmare 4, when it came out, it's just it came out at the right time to where it's okay, that's my hero, and then Nightmare 2, he's just still scary. So it's but it's it's all the things he does in Nightmare 4. He really uses all his dream skills to the fullest. And in Nightmare 2, they took him out and made him less powerful, and because
he's leaning on Jesse so much, and
yeah, exactly. So the storyline dictates a little bit how much you should fear them in a way, if that makes sense.
That was the one where they learned we can't replace Robert.
Yeah, that's true. Yes.
Very quick.
Very quick. They had a replacement in the movie for 2 seconds?
Yeah, you see him in the shower scene, I believe it is. It's the only scene. It's so creepy when you look at it now, it's like, who the fuck is this? Because it's just the stats and everything is just that's not Freddy.
He's walks a little bit like Frankenstein now for some reason, Some guy's not comfortable doing that shit. So
I think that's what pissed me off the most with Freddy versus Jason was because I'm a Kane Hodder man.
Yeah.
And then, what's his name that plays him in Freddy versus Jason? He has that very Frankensteinish approach, and
that's exactly
very lumbering. And it's yeah.
Mm-hmm. But that's exactly what Ronnie Yu was going for. He wanted a Frankenstein style Jason. Yeah. And it's good for good on Kane Hodder too, because he says he had a meeting with Ronnie Yu, as far as I remember hearing, and they just weren't on the same page about what this Jason was gonna be. And since Ronnie Yu was the director, well, he's gonna get his way.
Oh yeah.
So that's just life, and that's how movies go. Unfortunately, fortunately, that's whatever. But it's a guy's vision versus another guy's vision, and I'm glad that at least in the Nightmare movies, they seem to have respected Robert's point of view for the most part, because they keep bringing in directors all the time that are different. So, but yeah, he had idea of the differences. He wanted Roberts to seem smaller, I think, compared to Jason, and Jason be this big towering guy, but also he had to represent the better of two evils. And I think that Kane Hodder might have come off as being more evil than Ken.
I can see that, because he the husking and all the mannerisms that made
the mannerisms, exactly, because he's the first iconic guy who Jason really could show off that Jason, he was pissed behind the mask, that's at least I think so. Where the other guy said played him maybe a little bit more zombie like, where Kane, he comes in and gives him more anger,
you feel like it's more than a hockey mask there, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he manages to give the hockey mask life somehow, and
he did.
Yeah, or unlife. I don't know, but
that's the real question.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I greatly appreciate. You might find this funny, because at one point years ago, I went to Carl Beekler's shop, and he directed the Seventh with Kane, and in his shop was this full body mold of Kane Hodder in his shop.
Oh wow!
Yeah, he had a full fucking mold of Kane Hodder, and it's just standing there leaning up against something, and we were just like looking at all this different shit in there. But yeah, it was cool.
That's not something you see every day.
No, it's not. No, it was pretty big.
And Kane is such a great guy too. So we went to Days of the Dead this past year, and I've met him a few times, and I've met Derek Mears a few times, and I kept trying to find, because it was so cool. We got to share a elevator with Tom Savini earlier in the day. So I met him, and I had him sign my hockey mask, and I kept looking for Kane, and he wasn't at his table. So we went to Derek, and Derek signed, right in the middle. So I was like, I got to get Kane on this hockey mask. So I'm like walking around. I'm like creeper mode,
Yeah.
So I see him like over there with some fans. So I don't want to impede. So I'm just kind of like standing next to this, pole, me and my fiance. And Kane kind of steps up behind me and just snatches my hockey mask out of my hand and keeps walking. And I'm like, dude, what do you say? It's
yeah.
So then he comes back over there and he looks at me and says, "Are you fucking kidding me? You got him right in the fucking center here." I was like, "Well, I was trying to find you, but I mean, I couldn't." So he signs it, but he's like giving me shit the whole time. He's like, it's like Derek signed right there where the triangle is. I got Tom on one side, and now I got Kane on this side. But he's like, "That's my fucking real estate up there."
Yeah. Yeah, he's been very nice, because then and it's so fucking funny too, because we did we put a bunch of shows, and I remember what the fuck were we even doing? We were sitting at a bar with Robert, I think, and then Kane comes over. And then he's just talking about something with the show, and we're just like, sitting to the side, giving them their privacy to talk about what they need to talk about, right? And my wife and I, and I think we were also hiding from Gary Busey at the time. Back then he was
out there.
Yeah. But yeah, we were sitting there at the bar. Robert was there. Oh, he was, and Lisa Wilcox was right next to us too. And Kane comes up, talks some show stuff or movie stuff, whatever it was, and then he walks away, and that's one of the things where so I was like, okay, yeah, cool, all right, see you, bye, Robert, and then he goes, bye, Anders, And they're like, how the fuck does he know my name? You know? It was like, Kane Hodder just said bye to me and using my name. And I'm like,
wow.
I don't remember. Yeah. So like, you know,
that's where you realize I got some cool points
Kane,
I didn't know I had.
And like, it's one of those things where it's just funny because, and then has some funny shows where stuff like that happens where like we don't like people know us, you know, and we don't remember really having like had that talk connection or whatever, you know. But there was one time when we were sitting in don't judge us. We were sitting in Gary Busey's room and
that's below Uncle Red. Come
TV,
on,
whatever, and again, so it might have been the same show. It might have been the same, you know. But then again, Gary, he likes to have his door open, and so people just walk by and say, "Hi, Anders." When they see me hanging out in Gary Busey's room, and it was my wife, and it was like. At one point, it's almost like this gotta stop. Yeah. So like, but yeah, it's we've probably been in the scene for so long that, you know, everybody fucking knows who we are. It's, you know, whenever they see us. I remember my Tom Savini. He's a fan of my wife's work, the Were Pups. He has one of his own. So it's funny how things just sort of, you know, just it's a little world, you know, but it's fun. It's fun.
It was funny when we caught the elevator with him because, like, my fiance, she's very new to this type, my nerd world, so to speak.
Yeah,
so she'd give me this, you know, as a Christmas gift for us to go there. And, you know, we get on the elevator and like I look and I was like, I said, baby, we don't hear what a fucking legend. And she didn't pay me any attention because when we got off the elevator, he was like, oh, I'm just some bum. Because, you know, he had his little hoodie on. He's like, oh, I'm just some bum. So she thought I was like fucking with him. It was some guy.
Yeah.
And then like an hour later, you know, he's at his table and we come over there and she looked and she said, I thought you was just being a smart ass on the elevator. And I was like, no. I said, it's literally a living legend.
Yeah.
But she's like, you're just always saying slick shit, so I just thought you were being a smart ass.
Yeah.
I was like, no.
Yeah, at least I mean, my wife and I, we're so into horror too, is that like there's no fucking way that we're just so into horror. We, you know, we always have been, and we know all the same people, and so we all like, you know, it's who we are. We just, I mean, we always fucking watch horror movies, like even with the kid, you know. He's 15 months old.
You got to.
Yeah. That's like.
I was only 5-year-old in Nightmare on Elm Street 1, I can promise you, in Fitzgerald, Georgia. Mm-hmm. I was the only 5-year-old in the theater on opening weekend.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's like, and the first fucking horror movie I ever watched was, it was either Frankenstein or Psycho, you know?
Okay.
Yeah. So it was like, I think that, you know, and I remember that, and I was like, this is fucking great, you know. And I was like, yeah, it's like Psycho is like, you know, one of the first sort of slashers, you know, because you know, with his dead mom in the basement and all that stuff. And back then, my mom was like, oh, this is scary, you know. I was like, okay, it's just want to make me want to watch it even more, you know.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, and then there's Frankenstein's like creating. You know, it's like it's just everything you love about it is that madmen killing people and mad scientists creating monsters. It's like, I mean, what's not to love? You know,
you still can't beat those Universal monsters.
No,
I'll catch this because Halloween, you know, they'll put them on some of the streaming platforms.
Yeah,
and I've got my fiance; she'll start watching them with me, and she like really is like, is there any more of them? Is there any more? And she actually watched Terrifier and Terrifier 2 with me, and I was so proud because she's from a Holiness family.
Nice.
So I got her to watch Terrifier, and then when Terrifier 2, she said, "Is it in yet?" I was like, "Baby, come in the middle of the day. We got it. Let's just watch it." She was. So we're getting her there. We're corrupting her slowly, little by little.
Cool. Nice. You got to corrupt them.
You got to. I mean, if I can't be the black stain on her soul, who can?
Yeah, right. And then also I think that I think that horror fans are some of the best people. It's like, I mean, I was gonna build on that sentence, but then I realized you don't need to say anything else. I think that I mean, maybe some things have changed over the last like 5-10 years. I don't know, but like when we were doing conventions, we met so many fucking great people,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like most of our friends are horror fans, either they work in the genre or they just appreciate it, and I think there's a lot of creativity in it, and I think a lot of horror movies also have a lot of morale in them.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, the bad guy gets punished usually, and it's kind of like what Alice Cooper says, is that he portrays a bad guy, but he always gets beheaded or whatever. There's repercussions, and it's not just like some guys, like, unlike, I like action movies too, but basically, like, you got people like Bruce Willis or whatever going around shooting all sorts of people, and it was like, okay, and then
pat him on the back and let's send him home.
And it's like, all right, and it's a different. If you just subconsciously, I think there's a thing where we know that the monsters are the bad guys and they will get killed, for their bad deeds. And if they don't, well, they live on because evil never dies. So I think there's a very strong fairy tale aspect to all horror movies, which I think is eternal. I think it never dies. I think it never goes out of style. I think that they were around before the medieval ages. There were horror movies or not movies, stories, fairy tales, cautionary tales.
Yeah.
And I think that's what horror movies are today. If they're, I don't want to say if they're done right, but if they're done right and they have that aspect, I think that there's something long lasting in it.
Something very special in it that captivates us, and it has for a very long time. Like you said, since the medieval days and before. There's always that grim story that kind of like in Game of Thrones when she's like, the night is full of terrors, and it's like, oh shit, it's like so cool.
Yeah, it's true, and it's like, and funny. I mean, now I'm gonna just verge off a little bit here, because you're the nerdy man cave and all that. But Masters of the Universe, I saw one of your posts recently, and I think that has a lot of that same. Before the cartoons, the mini books, they had that element,
It established a mythology, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. I don't really like the cartoons. I think they verge too far off what the original idea was behind He-Man and Skeletor and all that. I think it had something really more profound before the cartoon, because then Spider-Man came along and now everybody had to have a secret identity. But I think that back then, this hero to fight the evil Skeletor, and they just made it really big, Masters of the Universe. And I think that's basically the same thing that most horror movies touch on, even in Nightmare. It's just the girl who is this special person who, whether it's because of bravery or purity or whatever you want to call it, that they can fight evil and win. And I think that's like I said before, it's like it's a universal theme that never dies, I think.
We all love to see good win the day, and every one of these girls have a different quality about them that makes them the final girl, so to speak. Right. But each one has a different strength, I guess, is what I'm looking for.
Yeah, and of course, Jamie Lee Curtis, of course, but I think that people they often say like, okay, well, Halloween opened the doors for all these final girls, right? And she might have in movies, but before that, there were lots of final girls in lots of stories. And I think that horror movies just more, in modern times just carried it on before that, because there were restrictions from the ages like the 50s and 60s, where it was the men who did all those things, and wives stood at home. But that's just like a snippet of time and culture that took that away. Before that, there had been lots of warrior women and dragons and all sorts of stuff. So I think we just sit back a little bit in that time period, possibly 40s, 50s, 60s, before we started looking outward from the culture of the time and saying, well, here's what's going on, and all these women are doing all sorts of stuff. There's all sorts of evil, even in I don't know, can't think of anything right now, but
they allowed them to not just be dames anymore.
Yeah, exactly. They're not damsels in distress. Now they're lots of there's lots of different, the maiden slaying a dragon or the unicorn, because back then unicorns were bad.
You got to go legend every now and then. I mean,
exactly. Yeah, and that's I think that even Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the girl got away. She's the final girl, even though she didn't actually kill Leatherface. Thank God.
Do you ever wonder, like, what happened to these poor souls afterwards? Because let's be honest, on a lot of, like with Leatherface, okay, you might get by with that one, but with a Freddy or a Jason, you're not explaining that shit to the cops. No. Your ass is going to jail in a mental institution.
Yeah, it's true. And I mean, and that's actually one of the things that's kind of fun in the Nightmare movies, because they discover Glenn's bedroom full of blood. Like,
how do you explain that?
Yeah, okay, so this boy just got blended in his bedroom. How do you explain that? Now he's a smoothie. Good job. Yes, and that also.
You got the corner over there puking his guts up. You've done something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there's that, and then of course in Nightmare 4 they all have like more natural explanations, except that all of a sudden now Joey's just inside a waterbed. Like, I would like to see the forensic papers in that too. Like, we don't know.
This is a suicide.
yeah, exactly.
Squeeze yourself through a waterbed hole this big.
Yeah, skillfully managed to crawl inside the waterbed without spilling a drop. And it's just, there's a lot of interesting situations going on. But it's I guess that's why they're strong and they survive, because they can deal with that shit.
That's it. Well, we can't thank you enough for coming on here talking with us. We are super thankful. Love to pick your brain. Maybe we have you back on another day when you got more time. And
yeah, sure.
That's it. You got anything would you like to plug upcoming or?
Well, there's of course, Trick or Treat Studios. They're very good to us, and if you want to get more gloves, then ask them, not me, because I don't know if they're going to do more movie gloves. But I would like to see that happen. Fried Racks, they're a great company for t-shirts. This is actually my glove on this shirt right here. It's a Nightmare 3.
Sweet.
Yeah, this is one of my all-time favorite gloves. Shirts, actually. It's Mudley Kruger.
I've seen that shirt before. I've come close to buying it.
It's a reprint of an older one they did years ago. But yeah, this is Ben from Fried Racks posing with one of my gloves. So it's like a personal sort of thing. And then Wear Pups, my wife's work. And a movie we just worked on is premiering this March in Cincinnati at Horror Hound. Subspecies 5.
Sweet. Okay.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah. So I just barely escaped Serbia alive. I had to go to the hospital with like severe appendicitis.
Holy cow!
Shortly after arriving into the States, yeah. So I'm not even kidding. So yeah, there's that. Go support that movie, and yeah. Besides that, just I don't know, do whatever the fuck you want. Yeah. Be
That's
good
the
to
best
each
answer
other.
I've heard yet. Be excellent to each other.
Yeah,
We'll hit them
exactly.
with a
Be
Bill and
excellent
Ted
to each other.
right after go fuck yourself.
Yeah. Good. Be excellent to each other. Just don't bother me with it. Yeah.
Oh, hey, that's as good as you can get right there, sir. Well, like I said, we thank you very much. It's a pleasure talking to you. Like I said, we look forward to having you again.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Hopefully everybody enjoyed that interview. It was really fun talking to him. Really great guy.
Super great.
Just a blast to talk to and really fun. We had a lot in common, and we could have talked for a lot longer, but we decided at some point we did have to turn it off so he could get back to his family. But with that, we hope you enjoyed it, and let's go straight into Nerd Out Hassle. For anybody who hasn't been here before, this is where we do questions about the topics of the day and respond with no prep time. You heard us ask Anders one as well, and he was gracious enough to answer that. But so we'll ask each other our Nerd Out questions now. And Hassel, I went first last week, so it's your turn, sir.
Well, in the spirit of things, I'm going to stick with Freddy. I know you're not a huge horror fan, Monster. However, you've seen enough of this genre. Which is your favorite Freddy movie? Makeup, all that jazz.
The only one I remember, the only two that I actually even remember very well is well, I'm trying to remember what number it is now. I only remember two of them well, and I don't remember what the first one is, what number it was, but then I remember Freddy versus Jason pretty well.
I remember us all going to the theater to watch that together because PK shit himself.
Was it him or was it Jesse?
It was PK. It was PK. I remember because he was dating the crazy one. We won't mention her name. However, I do remember one of the few times we all were able to get together. So
yeah, and it was Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the rebooted one where Jesse was sitting behind me and almost ripped my shirt off because he got scared, jumped up and grabbed me, and it tore my shirt, took my shirt along with him.
Yeah, you got us in trouble for talking about a kid's teeth on the theater.
God. Well, some people you can't take them anywhere. But yeah, I guess just because I don't remember too many of the others, I'm not gonna say that was my favorite makeup or look for him, but that was my favorite movie out of any of his. And it is
enjoyable. It is.
That was one of the ones that was like, all right, it's just fan service really, but it was enjoyable to watch.
Me, I'm an M Street 3 guy. I love what look wise by far part 2, and that's what we discussed in the show. Like I said, I love the Kevin Yeager effects, the way it looks great. Story wise, I'm a 1 or 3 guy. It fluctuates back and forth. I love part 2 for it. It's special in its own way. But I'm just a 1 or 3 guy. I feel like they just bookend each other really well.
Well, my question is not necessarily related to Freddy. I'm going to ask a question, and I know what Anders is creating is not mass-produced prop replicas. He's doing customized pieces for people. Even if they are a reproduction, it's still customized to what that person likes. And I think that's actually, I prefer that a lot of times to just a mass-produced prop replica because you'll find little blemishes and stuff. But
this right here, like my fingers, they come here. It's tied around the hand. The fingers don't move as well as what an Anders glove would. I mean, that's the difference.
Yeah, but in that vein, a lot of times we can't get a lot of these things custom made. But if you could have, so I'm going to stick with just prop replicas, and I'm not necessarily going custom made. I'm doing the more mass produced ones just because usually they are easier to get. But what's out there that is one of your prop replicas that you really want, like your number one want that you don't already have, whether it's been made or not, but something that you were like, if they made that tomorrow, or if I saw it tomorrow and I could afford it, I'd buy it no matter what.
Ooh, it's a damn good question because I have a pretty extensive collection of replicas already.
Yeah,
there's a lot of shit that I still would love to have. Ooh, damn, that's a good one, Monster. That really is.
It's hard to hold an answer to that because there's a lot of stuff I'd like to have too. I mean, like I have some stuff, like I have the Green Lantern battery, and that's my favorite character. So like having that's a big deal. But at the end of the day, that's something I already have. Thinking of stuff I don't have, there's a lot, but
yeah, because I mean, I've got the Hellraiser box, and it's signed by Clive Barker and Doug Bradley. I've got the Jason mask signed by Kane, Tom, and Derek. And I have a replica. It's not as good, but I have one, and I got autographs and whatnot. I have a Matrix of Leadership, but is it? Something that would be cool, just off the beaten path. Something that would be really neat. Because I mean, I have wrestling championships and things of this nature. The Cosmic Key from the Masters of the Universe movie. How cool would it be to actually have that big? The synthesizer buttons, the keys that go around. I mean, of course, it's not going to work. But if it could just one of the key or two would actually sing the song. I mean, it doesn't have to twirl around or anything, but that would be something neat and unique that not everyone has.
That is a good one. Yeah, I debate a lot of times about what I would want. I mean, there's a lot of stuff, but it's like a number one thing. A lot of times I would debate between like, I need a Sword of Omens or He-Man's Power Sword. I need them as an actual metal sword. But you know what I really want? I went kind of off the beaten path. Something that I've never seen anybody even attempt to do that I would like to have. I'd like to have Matt Tracker's mask from the Mask animated series. Just his.
That's sweet right there. That's cool. That would be neat.
What was his
wearable?
His
of course,
mask
right?
was Spectral. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah,
that's
his mask
awesome.
was Spectrum. That'd be the one I'd want. That one was cool. And I have a lot of stuff like Power Ranger helmets and stuff. I think I have. Looking over at them now, I've got Lord Draken, the white one, the blue, the pink, the red, and the green.
I have red, green, white. I'm missing Draken. I do want that. I've yet to buy it, and I got a Lord Zed. I did get the Lord Zed helmet, which is really cool. It looks really good. But
yeah, they did a good job with that one.
Yeah.
But with that, we had a pretty lengthy interview, and it was really fun. So let's we're gonna head out of here. But before we head out, let's give some shout out to our friends. Up first, Mr. Daniel Garcia, creator of Zyber Ronin. Finishing up that book now, getting ready to produce some more from what we keep seeing. And you can check back here for regular updates as well as on Daniel's Facebook at Daniel Garcia and on his Instagram at D Garcia Comics. Check out our friend Mr. Chris Daly, host of Fueled by Weird podcast. You can find him on Instagram at Fueled by Weird and on his podcast Fueled by Weird wherever you find your podcast. He discusses all things nerdy and weird. He has great reviews. Don't forget about our friend and content creator and autism activist Miss Mandy Lynn, aka Kushimama. You can find her on Instagram at Kushimama and on YouTube at Doodle's Toy Report and her new channel at Kushimama. And
she could almost change her Instagram into a battle page because she's been
I'm just going to avoid that altogether, but it has been a fun week talking to her. Don't forget about August Aguilar from Strange Film Studios. Remember, keep an eye out for their new projects. I saw he's got some new solo podcasts coming up this weekend. And someone asked him a question because he's got a Q&A one coming up if Stanley Elk was returning from He Comes to Kill, and that was a definite yes. But that will be expanded upon more in his next podcast from what he said. And also our extended Nerdy Manroom family member, Big Rob. You can find him on his channel, Big Rob's House of Entertainment, and No Chinese Food.
Chinese Food!
Where he drops new reviews and unboxings of awesome models and shares his fun stories from life on the road. I do know that last week he said he didn't have a story, but he still came up with a pretty good review of some television shows he was watching. But don't forget, while you're checking everybody else out, check out our sponsors, The Zone Collectibles. You can find them on the internet at thezonecollectibles@gmail.com and on Facebook at The Zone Collectibles or in their store at 305 Main Street, Tifton, Georgia. Visit them for all your nerdy needs. Help them support the local artist community by supporting their cause of bringing unity through community. Found them tonight.
They're about to hit their 5-year anniversary, Monster. Literally in like 2 weeks. 5 years, not one. Oh, shit, I fucked that up. Not 2, not 3, not 4. 5 times.
So make sure you visit them to celebrate their anniversary. And I think they have some fun stuff planned coming up, so keep an eye out for that. But before we leave here, Hassel, make sure you tell everybody where they can find us at as well.
Man, while you showing all them guys some love, show us some love. Hit us up on YouTube, of course, at the Nerdy Manroom Show. You can find us on Roku TV at Southern Joy Media. It's downloadable. The episodes are there. You can find us on Twitter, Nerdy MR Show, at the Facebook via Hassel Hutchinson Nerdy Manroom Show, and at Instagram, the Nerdy Manroom Show.
And that brings us to a close this week. But join us here next time. We have another awesome interview with diorama building guru, Mr. Seth Stafford. Until then, live nerdy and sleep tight.